So I must confess, I feel a little awkward this morning as I'm getting ready to share with y'all. Not so much because of the content of today's gospel or the direction that I think the Spirit was nudging me in preparation for today, but because I'm going to share a story about when I was younger and my parents are here, and that just adds a whole different layer to things. So bear with me. How many of us at some point when we were growing up heard a variation of the phrase, clean your room? Okay. This is great. I'm glad that we're all sharing this morning because, well, you'll find out in a little bit. So how many of us, when we were asked to go clean our room, went ahead and took care of it right away? Okay, I'm going to assume that not raising our hands is because we are participating and not because we aren't participating. So I'm going to assume that all of us at some point when we heard that, we're like, yeah, maybe not right now. Okay? All right. Well, I had that moment a few times growing up. Although I will be very honest with you. There was one moment when I was younger, when I was asked if I could go clean my room, when all of that changed. I don't particularly remember what day of the week it was. I want to say it was a weekend, but I can't for the life of me remember. But I remember my mother saying that she wanted me to make sure that I cleaned my room. And I will confess that when I was younger, my room wasn't always the cleanest, and I want to say that wasn't entirely my fault, because in order for my sisters to get to their room, they had to walk through my room because my room was an attic room, and it was just this thing. And sometimes my sisters on the way to their room would leave things in a trail to their room. You know how there's that bucket of Barbie dolls that every family seems to have at some point or another, and there'd be a Barbie doll shirt here and a Barbie purse here and one shoe and the other one, you have no idea where it is, and then 2 dolls over there and then a car. And you kind of get the picture? Well, anyhow, so from the stairs going from the kitchen upstairs to my room and then that long expanse to then where my sister's room was at the other end of the attic, there was always this trail of stuff. And I remember very vividly this morning that my mother asked me to make sure I cleaned my room, looking to the side of my bed and seeing this pile of stuff. And in the middle of this pile of stuff, there was something that really was not expected. In fact, it was incredibly disturbing to me. The first thing that caught my attention in this pile of toys and probably some dirty laundry was a mouse. And it really got my attention for pretty obvious reasons. It was disturbing. It was gross. I remember thinking to myself, how did that get there? And you would think that the next response would be to not want to mess with any of that stuff because there's a mouse in there somewhere. But no, I was like, I wonder where it went. Let's go digging through all of the toys and the dirty clothes and everything else to figure out where this critter went. For those of you who are curious if I found it, the answer is no, thank heavens, because that would have been gross. But I remember telling my mom, and this is the part where I knew it was going to get weird. Hey, Mom, there was a mouse upstairs, to which she, of course, had her usual disgust because mice aren't supposed to be upstairs. Mice aren't supposed to be in the house. Mice shouldn't be anywhere around the house. In fact, dear Father, you should make sure that there aren't mice around the house. You need to make sure that all the little holes around the part where the basement meets the siding are all filled in with that expanding foam stuff. You need to make sure that there are not mice anywhere, so much so that even if you see a mouse fall off the refrigerator, you will stomp the thing till there's nothing left of it. You can talk to my dad about that during coffee hour if you'd like to know more. For me, that little critter that I don't think is the same critter that was on the refrigerator, I hope, for its sake, was enough of an incentive for me to not want to leave anything out in my room again. I became very obsessed with wanting to make sure that my room was as clean as possible because I didn't want to have the unsettling feeling of some furry critter going through my stuff. I didn't want to have to deal with it. I wonder sometimes, dear church, if that's kind of the way we approach a lot of things. I wonder if the reason why we develop incentives for ourselves to do things is because we don't want to have to deal with something else. We want to have a clean room because we don't want a rodent to be playing around in our stuff. We want to have a clean house because we don't want a little rodent deciding that it's going to fall off the refrigerator when we're trying to get something out of it. We want to do something because we don't want something else to happen. You know, for Jesus and his disciples, for much of the ancient world, I'm convinced that there is a similar sort of mindset. We're going to do these things because we don't want this other negative thing to happen. We're going to go to the temple, we're going to offer sacrifice, we're going to live in community because we don't want God to be angry with us. Fast forward several hundred generations to the Middle Ages. Well, we want our family to go to church. We want our children to be baptized. We want to be part of this faith community because we don't want to end up in hell. Fast forward a few more generations to our present day. Folks seem a whole lot less disturbed by the notion of hell, but still feel they have to be incentivized to do things. Oh, I will consider caring about what's going on with my neighbor if maybe I have a relationship with my neighbor. Oh, there was an ambulance outside the other night. Well, thank goodness it was them, not me. Oh, there's a person at the grocery store who's having a hard time getting everything that they need in their cart, or shocked at what the bill is because eggs have to be $7 for a carton or something silly like that. Well, that's their problem. Why should I have to worry about it? We get stuck in these patterns, and of course it's nothing new. That if there's something that we find disturbing enough to be an incentive for us to do something, then maybe we'll do something about it. But otherwise, why bother? I think that's why Jesus spoke the way he does in today's gospel. Why he's so very direct with folks the way he is in today's gospel. He wants to make sure that those who are listening, and he even starts off the passage with that, right? I say to you that, listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If someone strikes your cheek, turn the other one also. If they take your coat, give them your shirt. Goodness gracious. I don't know about you all, but when I was in high school, if somebody were to grab somebody's coat, there would have been a fight in the hall. They wouldn't have been offering up their shirt. And I'm pretty sure that many of us in this room at some point or another had less than positive or uplifting words to say about someone that they didn't necessarily like. You know, Jesus says, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. You know, it seems easy, but it's hard, isn't it? We want to be able, I would hope most of us want to be able to say, we're good people, we try to do the right things, we try to care about others. But when we're asked to love those who we don't, when we're asked to give of ourselves for somebody else who we may not even know, are we so willing? Do we allow ourselves to do good for the sake of doing good, or do we fall into this part where if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? I wonder how many times we get ourselves caught in those kind of mental gymnastics where we say, oh, I'm going to do this thing that seems awfully philanthropic, awfully kind and uplifting, but there's some other kind of ulterior motive. Oh, I'll give to this organization or this facility or this cause because I know somebody that works for it, or because I know somebody that's personally benefited from it, or because I know that I'll get a nice little piece of paper that says that I get to write it off on my taxes. Do we love? Or do we just do because we feel that it will benefit us in some way? Jesus wasn't mincing his words, wasn't trying to give people easy excuses to get away from the hard work that we are called to be about. Jesus' words are challenging. I mean, let's just face it, they are. And whether it's these words or other words, we are being asked to live up to a standard that is far greater than sometimes we lift up for ourselves. Or maybe we lift up for our children and hope that they can try to measure up to it, but then we convince ourselves that if they fell short, it was their fault and not our own. Jesus' words push us to see what this world could be like. And I would go so far as to use that word that so often pastors get told not to use. And it's an S word. And it's not the one that sometimes we really want to say, but it's the other one. The world as it should be. The world that God created should be a place where we love, period. Where we care for those who need care, period. Where rather than judging, we offer compassion and wholeness. Or rather than wondering if we might get something out of it, we're merciful. Or rather than trying to figure out what the next incentive will be, we're offering up our coats and our shirts for those who need them, and not withholding from those who are begging for their basic existence. Jesus' words offer up to us a glimpse of what this kind of world in which Christ calls us to be a part of is all about. And Jesus isn't ashamed of it, isn't afraid of it. I don't think he wants us to be either. I don't think he wants us to be developing systems within our communities and within our worlds, within our own sense of being, that we have to be afraid of something in order to do something, or that we have to hate somebody in order to love somebody else, or that we have to create some kind of division or system of ups and downs to make things happen, but to just love first. And I think that Jesus is so unashamed of sharing this because he knows that he came into this world that we might be able to see his examples and be filled with the same kind of grace and mercy that God poured into us through Christ's death and resurrection. That rather than being fearful when the opportunities arise, to be bold in our proclamation of loving and caring for a world that God made and called good. Yeah, I know it's hard. I think we all know it's hard. And yet I also firmly believe that the reason why we are all here this day is because we understand and believe deep in our hearts that Jesus Christ has already done all of the hard stuff for us. Jesus Christ already suffered and died for the things that we ourselves brought upon ourselves and others. Jesus was already laid in a tomb for the things that we ourselves should have brought us to an early grave for. And because Christ lives, we too will live with a promise of a renewed life that calls us to love as Christ loves. And for any of us that are thinking in this moment, well, how am I supposed to do this because I'm only one person? Look around you. You are surrounded by brothers and sisters, equal children of God in just this place. And there are several more throughout this world. And I also know that gospel so very well, alive in their hearts, that are eager, so very eager to share the kind of love that God has for this world each and every day. So yeah, it's hard. And Christ has already done the hardest part. Yeah, it's hard, but we don't have to do it alone because we have each other and the Holy Spirit that calls and equips us. Yeah, it's hard, but we need to stop coming up with excuses not to clean up the mess of this world that we have made. And hopefully it won't take a rat in the middle of it for us to do something about it. Thanks be to God. Amen.